Hey everybody, this is Charlie with 4BZ Truth. So I just wanted to check in again and just let you know that I'm still thinking about near-death experiences. And I was thinking of an old tune from my past. The band Petra. It's actually a cheesy old Christian band, and they sang a song, "Angel of light, you're telling me wrong is right. And you only bring darkness to my soul. Angel of light, you're telling me wrong is right. And I won't let your evil take control." Anyways, the reason I'm thinking about that song is because, anybody investigating near-death experiences, I want to keep drawing attention to this concept, but there's an angel of light, or even a light being, or light, the universe, or whatever the case may be, that masquerades as God on the other side. And when I say masquerade, I'm not trying to be derogatory. I'm trying to be discerning. I want to discern, if God gives us the ability to think and, be able to communicate with language. You're not just going to start speaking some other language that doesn't make sense to somebody. You're going to say it in a way that people can try to understand. Now, as far as the depth of this encounter that people end up having with a near-death experience, they say that this is more real than real in this reality. And if people are actually, coming back and saying, I don't know how to explain it because it's just so deep, and so you can't translate, or you can't communicate the experience through the English language or whatever. And then you start, these people are like, the only way I know how to communicate it is by try to put it in terms of, the universe, or collective consciousness, and I keep an account of people's inability to communicate something that is so complex. But the Bible is very descriptive of, there being an opposition. There's a darkness, and then there's light. So, the whole yin and yang thing, I'm not advocating for the worldview of Eastern philosophy or whatever, but I'm pulling wisdom from the concept of yin and yang and thinking there is darkness and there is light. There is a opposition. Now, if there's opposition, does that mean that they're in cahoots with one another, trying to pull us one way or the other? Or are they two opposing forces that are trying to advocate for their own perspective and trying to, convince or dilute one way or the other? And I'd like to think that, the light comes from God, and the darkness comes from the devil, or Satan, or Lucifer, or whatever. Now, if they're talking about angel of light being this figure that masquerades as God, but is actually deluded, and they're actually, trying to deceive. What about that? I honestly, I don't really hear this discussion very, very talked about, amongst the near-death experience forums that I am involved with. And I'm not just trying to, deflate somebody's worldview of what experience they had, because in some ways I feel like people have, not only did they have an experience, but it's probably more real than this reality, and I'm not going to take away from that. But with that said, if Lucifer, goes about trying to seek out who he can destroy, like a roaring lion or whatever, then why would he not set up a system of deception when somebody has a near-death experience, or even a death experience? What if they go on to freaking die, and then this light being that's calling itself God or whatever ends up being this freaking deception that ushers them into hell, or ushers them into outer darkness, or ushers them into whatever. Now, I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm trying to say that, are we accounting for all the variables? You know, some people just write off information too quickly. You know, I have a friend that, you know, basically found what he considered a flaw in the Bible, and he felt like, you know, that throws out the whole the authority of the Bible. It's like dumping the baby out with the bathwater. You know, at what point can you utilize information as authoritative? If there's any kind of information that might skew its authority, can any of it be reliable? I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure this stuff out, and it's important. I feel like these are the things that we need to unpack. Oh, there's a paramedics. We need to unpack this stuff and try to understand it. Now, maybe that's not your job. Maybe that's my job. Maybe it's my job to figure this stuff out so that other people don't have to freaking do all the legwork. But at the same time, I'm trying to just plant seeds in other people, in their mind, so that they can go out and start looking into the stuff themselves. You know, I think everybody in the body, you know, the quote-unquote body, should, you know, try to function in their own way. You know, the hand's going to, you know, grab stuff and pick it up and carry it. The leg's going to walk, or, you know, carry the body. The foot, you know, is going to start getting, you know, you know, calluses on. So the point that I'm trying to make is that each member of the body has its own function. My function is that I'm trying to unpack a lot of this dysfunction or loose ends within the faith. Now, people might look at what I'm doing as being a distraction, or I'm distracted, or I am becoming deluded because I can't hone in on one thing that I consider, you know, a doctrine or a perspective. You know, I just sound like I'm being blown around with the winds of doctrine or whatever. I can't even freaking hone in on one thought that I can consider truth. Now, could that be its own deception in itself? Because people may assume that they're settled into the correct way of thinking, but I've come to the conclusion that truth is truth, and it's not diluted, you know? Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. It's a wild claim, you know, if Jesus is who he says he is, then does that mean anybody who doesn't come through Jesus is in trouble? You know, my universalist friend might say, no, Jesus covered all sin. There is no more sin. You know, our sin does not prevent us from becoming, you know, God's kids or whatever. Or even take it as far as saying that we're actually, if we're God's kids, then we're going to grow up and be God. Like we're his offspring. I don't buy into that mindset, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people that do. You know, I live in Boise, Idaho, where there's like thousands of Mormons. They believe we're offspring of God, that we're going to become God. Gods of our own planets or our own realms or whatever. So, what are the implications to all these questions? Are these the questions that we should have answers to in our life? It seems to me like we need to hone in on truth. If Jesus says he's truth, then maybe we should expose truth, and in the process the lies will kind of fall to the wayside. The deceptions will fall to the wayside. The more truth we discover, the more predominant, the truth becomes, and deception will no longer have a foot to stand on. That's the way I see it. And man, I freaking love you guys. If there's anybody that likes and subscribes to my channel, it's such a blessing to me that anybody's willing to hear what I have to say. I just feel like God is, beginning to use me to expose truth and lies, whatever that ends up being. I'm not about to try to get sucked into some deception, but again, discernment is important. And I'm not gonna, I think it's possible that, discernment isn't available to everybody. Some people just get sucked into whatever lies. I don't know. So anybody want to give me feedback, I'm open, and again, my name is Charlie. This is 4BZ Truth, and be blessed. We'll talk to you soon.